Welcome back, everybody. This is Edwin, the Magic Engineer. This is the part 2 video of the response to the professor's "The Reserve List is a Lie" video that he made. You might have noticed I put a part 1 in the title of the last video. Well, this is the second part, and I wanted to split these up into 2 because I knew that I was going to get flamed, I was going to get reactions. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually let people have their chance to ask their questions, offer feedback, because who knows? Maybe I was wrong about the whole thing and somebody will offer something really good. I wanted to at least give that chance, even though I'm like 99% sure this is the way this topic goes. So I let it go for a while now. People have listed comments, they've listed feedback, they've tried to argue points. And so I'm going to encapsulate some of that in this video. And I'm also going to respond to some of the other YouTubers' videos that they made. And I'm going to make a better analogy that the professor should have either known about or he should have made. So to get right into it, the first video, and I'll let you see a picture of it here. This is the first video, was the "Reserve List is a Lie" response video 1. Down here in the comments, it has just been, there's been a decent amount of comments. If you go through and you read, you'll see this goes back and forth all the way between people making good, knowledgeable comments and people just spouting garbage because they don't understand. I will definitely tell you that when people came on and they didn't actually make any good points, they just attacked me personally, like you're just a douchebag investor or something, like, then I would actually be, I would hit those guys back, because it's like they're not adding any value. They're just coming in and insulting. So maybe something that I should make very clear, and I tried to in the last video, but I'm not an investor. I'm not really so much a collector. I actually fit into the category of playing. I own one card that's actually sealed inside of a case. That's it. And it was given to me from my friend, and I probably got it, right here. This is it. This is the only slabbed card that I have. And it was, as you can see, it was given to me from Open Boosters. And so it's kind of precious to me beyond that, but it's not even like a crazy expensive card. It's just one of those gold Legends rares that nobody cares about, and that's it. Everything else that I have is cards that I actually play with, and they're not meant to be sold. So I don't have a business. I'm not selling cards. I'm not doing this to shill for like any kind of like online business or something. Like, no, I am a player. I'm just telling you guys the status of this, because I've already gone down that rabbit hole. I know where it ends. I'm trying to save you time and make the subject clear. So I hope that's clear. So many of the other YouTubers did videos about, the reserve list and stuff like that. And there's a few of them that just had some gross misconceptions. One of them that I want to talk about is Desolator Magic. He actually made a video. And, he very clearly is an anti-finance kind of guy. And he's got his perspective on that. And there's validity to lots of pieces of what he's saying. I'm not going to knock him on that. But one thing he definitely deserves to get a little bit slapped for is he tried to make the big point that there is no contract, with the actual, the promise of the reserve list. And he just didn't understand the concept of Promissory Estoppel. So let me make this very clear, and go ahead and check this with any lore you want. This is what I'm going to tell you is how it works. Promissory Estoppel is what's called an implied contract. It's not a contract. Desolator was right saying there is no written contract. There isn't. It's an implied contract. An implied contract is specifically an entire legal entity that exists. When no contract exists, is there other things that you can do to show that there was a promise and there was a break of that promise and there was damages that ensued? Can a contract be applied where none actually existed? That's the whole purpose of Promissory Estoppel and implied contracts. And like you can see in this video from YouTuber Law that I'm going to link right now, and by the way, I'll talk more about that in a little while. As you can see in that video, there is a very clear case of Promissory Estoppel. So Desolator Magic didn't even really know that that's what that topic actually is. Now, the other thing that he didn't so much talk about, but I want to make sure you guys know, because a lot of people miss this point. They talk about, look at relevant previous cases, and MTG Lion did this in the past also. Look at all these previous cases. Of course that has validity. Yes, that's really often how legal issues work. What's different in this case is two things. One of them is based on the way promissory estoppel works. And the second one is that you have to look at the size and damages of this actual case. So those are two very big points. Let's go over the first one. The way promissory estoppel works, the more time that goes by and the more times the party that made the promise makes the promise again, and then they make the promise again, and then they back up the promise and say it again, and every single time they're doing it with full knowledge of what everyone else is doing. Everyone else is investing their money based on that original promise. Every single time they recommit the promise, it's basically like they remove their ability to argue that somehow they did it without knowledge of what people were actually doing. Do you possibly think that Wizards of the Coast could claim that for 24 years for the reserve list promise, for 24 years, they had no idea that the secondary market exists and price values fluctuate and stuff like that? There's no way they could prove that. And I know that they try to take an official stance of not acknowledging it, but dude, if you think that they don't know the secondary market exists, you have no idea what you're talking about. First of all, the entire reserve list happened because of the secondary market. It was written right into the verbiage of it. Because secondary market values, we are not going to print these cards. It was right there in it. They acknowledged it right there, right off the bat. And now they pretend like they don't. So the lawsuits today are a little bit more difficult to get through. But if a lawsuit happens, you go through a process called discovery, where each party is able to go into the other people's sides and look at and get information. And trust me, Wizards does not want discovery to happen. There's probably all these other things that would actually come out. And other lawsuits for other various things might even be triggered and stuff. They absolutely know about the secondary market. And every single time that they recommitted to not doing the reserve list, it tightened the case against them of promissory estoppel. So it's not that they made a promise 25 years ago and it was so long ago you can let go of it now. No, that's not how it works. It gets stronger with time, not weaker. That's one thing. Now, the second thing is you have to look at the total damages of the case. Now, like this is what MTG Lion kept on saying, look at like previous case studies based on promissory estoppel. And if it was like a Subway owner that was promised by a Pizza Hut across the street once 10 years ago that he wouldn't, sell his business, and then he did, and the damages ensued. If it was one promise a while ago between just two small businesses, that is not the same thing as 24 years of recontinued promises by a multi-$100 million profit a year company, and with a net damage in the area of billions of dollars of total damages that would actually be caused by this. That's not in the same ballpark at all. And it's irresponsible of any lawyer to take a little case study with promissory estoppel that has like two dudes and a promise made 3 years ago in an email to something like this that's been known about worldwide, billions of dollars, millions of people involved in it. Not even close, right? You cannot compare those two things. In fact, this case of promissory estoppel would probably be the landmark case that everybody in the legal system would talk about, because it would be such a long precedent. This is like the best case you could possibly get for a case of promissory estoppel being taken against a company. Because of the size of the damages, that means there's something to sue for there, right? So yeah, MTG Lion's thing, he just waved his hand and he tried to dismiss that, and that's not valid either. And he also made the comment, even about my video, that that I know people that have had their lawyers look into it, and I have, and they did, that they said that they would actually sue, and he said name names or it didn't happen. Notice that in his video, he said, I met Watsy's lawyer, but he didn't name that name. So it's funny, he's like telling me to name names, but he didn't name names. And anyways, the reason why I'm not going to name names is because it's not my money and my cards. It's people that I know, and they have their lawyers, and they paid their lawyers money to go do this research. And this was information between them that they paid for. I'm not going to give that information out. That's not mine to give. I told you what they told me, that yes, they would sue. And they would sue big time for a lot, and other people would add in. Yes, that does happen. There's people even in the comments below that even like are saying like I'm one of those people that would actually sue. So it's crazy to think there would be no lawsuit. No. So that's Desolator Magic's video, and that's MTG Lion's video, both addressed. One that actually I thought did a good job in the video, or at least mostly, is the professor has this guy named Ben Kenobi on his channel for a lot of his videos, and they're good YouTubers. I enjoy their content. Now, most of the time I like what the professor does. He makes content that's pretty on point and enjoyable. I'm not always on board with his perspective, but that's valid. I mean, I don't feel like I have to agree with everybody. But his reserve list video was irresponsible because it was so deeply incorrect in a lot of places, and it got a lot of people angry over about something that's not going to change. Now, Ben Kenobi, on the other hand, who is with the professor in a lot of their videos, he even made a video. In fact, I'm going to link his video, and most of his video was actually better than the other reserve list topic videos that other YouTubers have made recently. And the reason is that he fully came out and said it's not going to happen. It's never going to be reprinted. And he's right. And it was like a breath of fresh air to hear somebody with like that level of credibility on YouTube finally speak the truth. It's like, oh, thank you. Finally, someone's actually saying it like it is. He did actually have some mistakes in his video, though. He didn't understand the way Promissory Estoppel worked, and he tried to say that a class action lawsuit is just difficult and not going to happen, in which case refer back to the beginning of this video where I'm describing that like Promissory Estoppel gets stronger every time the original party reaffirms the promise, and then you can prove that they get knowledge of people investing, people doing things based on it, and then they affirm it again. And then they get more obvious knowledge about people doing things, and then they affirm it again. It strengthens the case of Promissory Estoppel. But he did actually Ben Kenobi got the idea that the amount of damages is so high that there's billions of dollars in this lawsuit. So good job to you, Ben Kenobi, of all the other YouTubers that are a little bit more mainstream, like unlike me. You did a pretty good job, and so you get credit there. A lot of people responded in my video comments that, I did the paper napkin math showing the dual lands. And I described how like the total price of the revised dual lands was like over $1 billion. And I had to keep making the same comment to people that like, you guys, that was not meant to be like exact math. That was paper napkin math. What I'm telling you is this is how much the actual damages would be, right? And let's take a small section of what those damages would be. This is the total damages. Let's take a section of it and let's just look at that, right? Just the revised dual lands. Now there's 570 something reserve list cards on the reserve list, right? I'm not even talking about Power 9. I'm not talking about Time Vault and Library of Alexandria, big expensive cards like Mishra's Workshop, just dual lands. And not even alpha, beta, unlimited dual lands, which by the way can go for like $10,000, $4,000 each, right? I'm not even talking about those dual lands, just revised. And when I looked at just revised, I was showing that the potential losses is all the way over $1 billion, right? And so people made the point, oh, well, that's not technically correct because, they wouldn't go from 100% value to zero, which is true. They'd probably go, the average price was like $400 per revised dual land. And I think it's a decent guess it'd go down to like $50 per card. That's just a guess, of course. And so, yeah, it wouldn't drop 100%. But my gosh, man, you missed the point. This is the total potential damages. We're just looking at revised dual lands. And even this is $1 billion of potential, which means this entire thing is well into the multiple billions of dollars. And so that's the damages in court. Then what's the profits? The potential profits is like what? Like 20 to like $100 million maybe after they go through expenses of what they gain just by doing them. And Ben Kenobi did a good job pointing this out too. The risk versus reward, it's not even close, you guys. Not even close. You're talking about risking billions worth of lawsuit for a few million worth of profit. It's not going to happen. Right. And so, yeah, people kept missing that point. Then they couldn't see the forest through the trees and what I was trying to explain. Now, a lot of other people also went back to the professor's example of the Shivan Dragon and the Birds of Paradise. And I explained in my video how there's lots of things that determine market price, right? And they didn't seem to get that point. And so what I said is exactly correct. But let me give you a better analogy. Here's what he should have done. Now, like I was saying before, lots of things determine market price on a card. And so rarity is definitely one of them. How good of a card is definitely one of them, right? How many sets that card can be played in? Well, that's an important part also, because how many sets that card can be played in increases its demand, because now there's all these other formats where people are looking to get that card. How popular those formats are, that's also a thing. Like old school has like, who knows, maybe 40,000 people worldwide that play it, but standard has millions of people that play it, right? So which formats you're allowed to play, that's a big thing. Now, a card being on the reserve list, that also is something that creates a price demand or not demand. So all of these factors are important. The problem with what the professor did is he took an apples to oranges kind of scenario. He took a card that was never on the reserve list, like Birds of Paradise or Shivan Dragon, and he tried to use that to compare to reserve list cards and say how these things, like this one proves this, and it doesn't do that because they're so different. There's so many other factors that go into it. You can play Birds of Paradise and Shivan Dragon in a huge amount of different formats, and they're a good card, so people want to play them. Unlike, a card like Gauntlet of Might, which is a decent card, but it's a reserve list card, and it doesn't really work in that many decks. And so Gauntlet of Might, if it was to be reprinted, still only being allowed in a couple formats, it would tank in price. But anyways, I'm telling you all this because there is a better card to use for an example. And let's actually go to that card right now. Let me flip you over to it. Okay. We are going to look at this card right here, Imperial Recruiter, right? Now, the original Imperial Recruiter was printed in Portal 3 Kingdoms. The one you are looking at right now, this was part of a spoiler article, and this update happened February 26th. Oh, why'd that reload? I hate it when it does that. So February 26, 2017 is when Imperial Recruiter was spoiled. And then now you go to the Magic the Gathering sets, and in this article you can actually figure out when it was released. The Magic 2025. Oh, let's see. It's called the Masters set, right? It's this one, Masters 25. So let's go to here and let's say okay, Masters 25, March 16th, 2018, right? Now these dates are really important because you look at the price chart here and you see, so that first date, I'm going to pull in this date so we're only looking at the dates that we actually care about. So the first one on this guy, remember, it was February 26th, 2017, right? So let's go over here. So you can see like the date appears right here. If I go to February 26th, right about here, somewhere right about there is when they spoiled Imperial Recruiter, right? And then the actual release of Masters 25 happened March 16th, 2018. So the actual release happened somewhere like around here. Okay, March 26th. So somewhere about right here. So there was a big spread in time between when they announced it and when they actually released it. Yeah, you can see the 25 right there. But look at what happened to the price action, right? This card got demolished. Now, why is that important? Well, the importance is if you look at Gatherer, it's only legal for Legacy, Vintage, and Commander. There's not a lot of formats out there. Now, Portal 3 Kingdoms was an incredibly small set. So in Portal 3 Kingdoms, Imperial Recruiter, before they reprinted it, had prices well up. You can see over here on the right side, it'll appear. This card was going between $350, $300. It had a very large price tag. And then they announced reprint, and it's just gone down steadily ever since. And there's like a tiny bit of uptick here, but now you're looking this card working in values of like $110, $130, something like that. The point is, the card got demolished. Now, Imperial Recruiter, much like a reserve list card, is not allowed for a lot of formats. It has a very specific kind of deck that you would want to put it in. And it was extremely rare in price, right? Now, it wasn't on the reserve list, so you don't have that direct comparison, but being in such a small print run with no real expectation that it was going to get reprinted is about as close as you can get. So Shivan Dragon and Birds of Paradise is a terrible cherry-picked card to compare it to. You got to pick one that shares as many factors in common as you possibly can, right? And Imperial Recruiter is a much better example. And you look at what happened, like they reprinted that card and just demolished. Now, this effect, I'm telling you, would have even been more pronounced if Imperial Recruiter was a better card that people had invested in specifically because they believed it was never going to be reprinted. There's no way somebody would have bought an Alpha Lotus for $400,000, like the BGS 10 one, if they didn't know for sure, or they believe for sure that it was never going to be reprinted. The only reason those cards got to those amazing prices is because people literally believed that they're never going to be reprinted. And I'm telling you that they're not ever going to be reprinted. And so to take a card like Shivan Dragon and compare it to that and ignore all these other factors that matter in finance and just wave your hands and say this is proof, it was irresponsible. It was a terrible example. And I wish the professor never actually did that, because it just got all these people upset about something that's literally never going to change. So I don't know. That's probably enough for now. I've spoken your guys' ears off. I've responded to some of the other YouTubers' videos and stuff like that. I think I'm done with this topic. I'm going to move on and go back to something else. Because again, this isn't any money out of my pocket, guys. I'm not the guy that's going to be losing any money. I'm just the guy who's trying to tell you you're beating your head against a wall that's not going to change. So save yourself some pain and stop doing that and go move on to something else. Or keep it up. I don't care. Your head, man. Anyways, I hope this is helpful to you guys. Bye.